All right, so video 4. We started at the south end, working to the north. We're at the extreme north end of this portion of the project. This is actually phase 1 of 2. Here you go. Here's one of the fisheries. So station 53. You can see the net tied off here. So that's what we have to work around. I'm not going to go into this one, but this site up here is a total of 5 acres. This was a Superfund cleanup site that we did 7 years ago. Took out, 40,000 cubic yards of contaminated soil, PCB primarily. I should mention this entire stretch of the industrial waterway is contaminated with PCBs and other stuff in the sediments. So just the salmon travel through quickly, so any PCBs they have are probably pretty likely to have been picked up out in the ocean somewhere else. So salmon are safe to eat through here. Bottom fish, yeah, not so much. So this all will get cleaned up eventually. But so this upland was part of this Superfund cleanup site for the lower Duwamish River. The Boeing property over here is part of it. They did a cleanup and riverbank restoration. Jorgensen Forge, which is no longer Jorgensen, had to do a big cleanup in the river here for sediments, and now they're doing a big cleanup upland. So this place has been hammered for the last 110 years. So anyway, phase 1 of this project is to turn this riverbank into habitat. And what that means is, I already mentioned the slope. So we got our 2-to-1 slope down to a +12 elevation. Mean higher high water. MHHW. I never get them straight. Anyway, it's a datum. So 2-to-1 slope to +12. We set logs. Those are tow logs, and then we set perpendicular logs for habitat to help pick up any debris that washes downriver, sediment, and helps hold the bank. And then we have the edge log here, +8. And then we backfill with sand with this, it's like concrete sand. Not concrete, I mean, it's what they call it. It's used for concrete. So we have a foot of concrete sand up to 12. And then we cover it with this coconut fiber blanket. But before we put this down over the sand, because the holes are so large, we put down a coconut blanket, just a regular erosion blanket underneath to help hold everything together. So, and then we have placed sand on top. So this habitat is very valuable from 8 on up, and this is all going to be planted with marsh grasses, sedges, and such. Again this December. But there is so little of this habitat left in the Duwamish Waterway and Elliott Bay that we're actually getting a lot of mitigation credit for doing this. From what we understand, this type of habitat has not been done in this way anywhere around here. So we're learning a little bit as we go. So anyway, the other feature here is we're trying to make this biodegradable. So to hold the blankets down, contractor found these biodegradable bioplastic stakes. Unfortunately, they're only 6 inches and they don't really hold well. So not sure how that's gonna work, but so for now they're mostly using sandbags. Here's the +12. Here's the base of slope. So everything gets cabled in. We have duckbill anchors on either side, and then driven down. Won't go into the process. You can Google it, but it's pretty extensive. There's another one. So everything gets cabled in to hold it. The cabling and attachment is more critical on the +8 logs. As it turns out, +8 logs will be underwater 40% of the time, where the +12s may be underwater 3 to 5% of the time. So water doesn't come up here that much, but it does. So what else we have? So these are the root wads we're installing. We're trying to mix it up so we get some straight logs, some root wads. We'll double up on some logs. I think that's probably not a double. So this particular log, there's a few of these, has probably been here 80, 90 years. This was some riverbank protection from way back. And because of the elevation here, because of 8, we're able to tie in. Rather than cut it, we incorporated. And it turns out, you see the rope on here, the tribes have been tying off nets on this log, although I don't think it's an official station. It might be, but so we left that. Here you can see what happens. The waves, and he's not going very fast. So any turbidity we've had has actually been caused by that, fortunately. Oh, here's the under blanket. So it's just a regular 100% biodegradable coconut fiber with the twine, so that will degrade. But that helps hold the sand in place. And then here you can see these stakes are not working so great. Yeah, looks pretty good. This stuff needs to be tied together better, but it's not a turbidity issue. It's just we want the sand to stay in place. So originally, way down at the north end, we put in a little sand shelf on top here. That was to fill a low spot, and then we didn't. But talking to the biologist, we agreed, hey, let's go ahead and continue it. So we've started it up, and for the rest of the 800 to 1200 feet, we'll do that. Turns out that when we plant the native plants, they're not going to grow between 8 and roughly 9, somewhere in here. So this will help the bugs, the beneficial bugs and stuff, and all that. So I don't know why there's rock there. So you see how they're overlapping. We're setting logs on. First, we trench it out, install blanket, quarry spall, set the log, cable it in. These are actually set too high. Ooh, muck. That one's not too bad. They should be buried halfway in. So maybe that's why they did the quarry spalls the way they did. But when you get wave action, if they're up too high, the waves will angle down and erode the bottom. So you want this buried enough so when waves hit, they go up or they go to the sides. So I would say those are a little too high. You know, not extremely critical, but we do require it. So this log they didn't get completed before tide came in, so they set a rock on that end. It's cabled on this end. We're strangely, normally you're not allowed to work during, this is prime salmon season in the summer. You're only allowed to work in a fish window, and I think here it varies, but it might be November through January or December through February, something like that. We got a variance to work during the salmon runs because that's when the best daytime low tides are. Part of the justification for doing it was how we completed the cleanup, and we proposed the same method here. Work can only take place when the tide is 6 feet horizontal out from the work area or 2 feet vertical down. So in this area, it's going to be more like 6 feet because the slope is so shallow. So when the tide gets up in here somewhere, then this work has got to be done and buttoned up. They can continue working back up the slope, and as the tide comes up, but this lower end work is done, needs to be done when the tide's back up in here somewhere. So that's part of the challenge. Very challenging project. A lot of moving parts, and trying to get everything together to work is a challenge. We've been at this now, I think, 3 weeks, and worked out most of the bugs, but there have been a lot of bugs to work out. So just I'll finish on this. Sandbags not in the right place on the seam. So sandbags, so you can see this would have gone under, this would have overlapped, and the sandbag should have been right here. You can see it up on top here. So that's, the wind is blowing that. Actually, I'll close on one last thing. So all of this clean water, when it rains, is going to end up down in here. You can see it's already happened. We've had rain the last few days. It will infiltrate into the sand, fortunately. So this won't end up in the river. But we'll have to watch that to make sure that we don't have problems. Normally, the plastic would run all the way down and tie into blanket, for example, if you could, so that clean water stays clean all the way down. But so this isn't the best way to do it. It's their choice. I think it's really low risk, so I haven't said anything. So anyway, that is Riverbank Habitat Project.